Well, first of all, Israel's not going to win this war. There is no plan. Uh, I don't know how many times. It's like watching the Germans, rush troops into the Barricade factory in Stalingrad. I don't care how many times you get in fresh troops, you run in. The Soviets were dug in, and they will repel you. Hamas is going nowhere. You said we're coming up on 2 years on this conflict. The fact of the matter is, Israel estimated that at the beginning of this, Hamas and Islamic Jihad had between 30 and 40,000 active combatants. And after 2 years of war, Israel says they've killed 8,900 of them. But those aren't trigger pullers. I mean, the number of trigger pullers is probably less than half of that. Many of those 8,900 are postmen, teachers, anybody who took a paycheck from Hamas. If you were a man of military age and you were paid by Hamas in any function, you were considered to be a Hamas militant and counted in the casualties. But the number of trigger pullers actually killed by Israel is extraordinarily small. And the other thing is that Hamas has had a very successful recruiting campaign during this conflict, especially during the brief ceasefire that existed. They were able to draw on even more manpower. Their tunnel network is over 80% intact. The Israelis will just continue to be slaughtered, and we're seeing the Hamas have greater success in terms of, taking out larger numbers of Israelis and planned ambushes. And as the Israeli will to continue the struggle drops, mistakes will be made. They'll get sloppy on the battlefield. Hamas won't get sloppy, and the number of casualties will increase. Politically, this is an unsustainable situation for Israel. Netanyahu is desperate. That's why he's talking about this need to carry out what is in effect the modern day version of the Warsaw Ghetto clearance operation carried out by the Nazis using their Ukrainian proxies. This is what Netanyahu and his right-wing genocidal maniacs are proposing, to physically annihilate the Palestinians, to remove them. Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, made some stupid statement about bulldozing the Negev and displacing these people, as if he has no understanding of what international humanitarian law is. Oh, he doesn't. And, doesn't understand what a war criminal is. He is one. Israel's just not going to win this. We see increasing pushback by the Israeli population, hundreds of thousands in the streets. It's curious. I always note that the former commanders of the U.S. nuclear forces, strategic command, and all that, when they retire, almost without exception, they all immediately go, "We've got to get rid of all nuclear weapons. We've got to go to global zero, no more nukes." But while they were commanders, they're like, "Nah, we've modernized our strike plan and we're ready to do." I mean, there's hardly any retired Israeli intelligence people or generals who are supporting this campaign. Almost, I forget the number that signed the letter, but it was a very big number. Almost everybody said this war is stupid. We have to stop this war. We're not winning this war. Haaretz just came out with a front page story that said something to the effect that the Palestinians have shown themselves to be the greatest people in modern history when it comes to defending their homeland. And the choice of words is interesting, their homeland, recognizing that there is a Palestinian homeland. Israel's just not going to win. And it's this is where I get in trouble, but screw it, I don't care. Israel was never going to win. I've said this from the beginning. But as you indicated, I also say that war is an extension of politics by other means. I firmly believe that Sinwar and the other Hamas planners knew what they were doing when they initiated October 7th. This was not a panicked plan. This was very carefully executed to achieve a very specific result. And that result was to get Israel to go into Gaza. And then to let Israel be Israel. That was the plan. And only by letting Israel be Israel would the world wake up to the horrific reality of what Israel actually is. You see, Israel has been able to disguise itself in this veneer of civilization. I mean, letting many Americans believe that they're literally just a 51st state. I mean, we just speak Hebrew, but we're just like you. I know that's what it was when I visited Israel. They were so proud of their close relationship with America. We're just like you, but they're not, because they spy on us. They kill our sailors. Don't ever forget the Liberty incident. These aren't our friends. They commit mass murder. These are horrible people. Horrible. The Zionists are horrible. We've pretended for far too long that Israel is a respectable nation, that maybe some people make mistakes, but Israel, there's nothing. No, the vast majority of the Israeli people support what's going on against the Palestinians. The people in the street aren't like, let's stop the war because we're murdering the Palestinians. They're saying, let's stop the war because we want our hostages back. That's it. They sit there, they don't shed a tear. Just the other day, 7 children lining up to get water because Israel's cut off water, and the Israelis bombed them, killing these children and other adults there for the crime of being thirsty. Hamas was genius in letting Israel be Israel. And look what's happening today. The world is turning their back on Israel. Israel's finished. It's finished. Everybody recognizes them for what they are. It's a horrific, genocidal, murderous state who can only exist if they feed off of the land of the Palestinians. Israel has no legitimacy anymore, not in the eyes of anybody except the Trump administration. But Donald Trump himself admitted that in America, support for Israel is rapidly eroding because Americans are waking up and seeing the reality of this genocidal, parasitic nation. So I think we're looking at not a strategic Israeli victory that Netanyahu was talking about, the strategic Israeli defeat that will bring about not just the military defeat of the IDF in Gaza, but it'll bring about economic collapse. Nobody wants to invest in Israel anymore. Societal collapse. People have lost faith in their government, and ultimately the demise of this Zionist entity.
And Scott, it logically pushes toward a war with Iran, which was demonstrated back in June of 2025 that such a war would be very difficult for Israel to fight, if not impossible. And, all those elements that you listed, also we can add in the fact that the more Israel does this, the more regional adversaries it's going to build. It already has a very strong one that despite a huge decapitation strike when it comes to Yemen's Ansar Allah, they are not stopping. Actually, they are escalating. They're hitting more ships now in the Red Sea. They're firing different kinds of missiles at Israel. And while we always knew, Scott, going in that Israel had, quote unquote, military superiority, they could kill a lot of people. They've done this and they're going to continue to do it. I think the broader context here speaks to a different reality. I mean, I think about, for example, slavery in the United States. It's a really ugly history, but it's one that lasted a long time, but it eventually ended because of, one, the fight back against it, and two, the impossibility of it continuing for that and many other factors. It seems like Israel has gotten itself into a very similar kind of situation, or at least that's how I see it. When we look at the entire context, Scott, what do you see?
I mean, Israel's bitten off more than it can chew, and the United States can't resolve this. Yes, Israel has American-provided aircraft and American-provided intelligence, and they can go in and, yes, they killed the prime minister of the Houthi-led government in Yemen and 11 of his ministers when they were having a ministerial meeting. It wasn't a military meeting. The vast majority of the ministers killed dealt with sport and infrastructure and things of that nature. But the Israelis killed them using real-time intelligence. It's curious what the Houthi did afterwards. They raided the United Nations aid buildings and arrested 11 people that took, various electronic communications means. I think the Houthi know who tipped off the Israelis. The Israelis have infiltrated the United Nations aid organization. I just want to bring this up, given the screaming that Israel does about allegations of how Hamas has infiltrated UN aid organizations in Gaza. The hypocrisy of Israel is on display. But that doesn't stop the Houthi. You can't stop the Houthi. The Houthi believe in what they're doing. They're not going to stop. And they're firing these missiles. You mentioned this new missile with that disperses several warheads. If employed, the warhead will be dispensed before intercept, which means now, right now the Israelis basically fire 2 missiles per inbound missile to shoot it down if they're successful. But now if you separate, I think there's up to 6 warheads. This means now to shoot down this missile, you're going to have, a minimum of 12 interceptors fired. So right off the bat, it's an economic victory for the Houthi. And they've borrowed this technology, or they've acquired this technology from Iran. Iran has been testing very similar missiles, I think, with even greater capacity for damage. If Israel wants to have a fight with Iran, there's a lot of talk about it right now. It won't be a fight that ends well with Israel. All the advantages that Israel had in the first round, the surprise attack, American collusion in setting the Iranians up, the Mossad's decade-long preparation with drones, that's not going to be there. The negotiations that Israel had with Azerbaijan to fly through their airspace, to come across the Caspian Sea and strike Tehran from the rear, that window won't be open anymore. So, Israel didn't get any stronger. Iran, on the other hand, has. They've accelerated the pace of their ballistic missile development, which tells you that all the Israeli efforts to degrade ballistic missile production during the 12-day war have failed. Iran has said, look, we made heavy use of missiles that were 20 to 30 years old in the first go around in the 12-day war. Now we have the good stuff, and it'll be a different fight if this starts again. So I don't know if Israel is really anxious to get into another fight with Iran. We've seen the United States start to withdraw military resources from the region because they understand the vulnerability, and that the next time around they're not going to have this game of conflict termination where, the Iranians let Trump fly his B-2 in to bomb empty targets, and then Trump evacuates his base so the Iranians can fire missiles and strike a radar in an otherwise empty target. They're not going to have this kind of game. The next time around, it's going to be for blood. And the Iranians will have a tremendous capacity to draw blood. And both Israel and the United States know this. So I hear Professor Morandi, who I have deep respect for. I hear you. I hear others, who are talking about, this real potential of a conflict. But I don't see Israel really wanting to start this war, because I think Israel understands that it's not going to come out on the winning side.
Yeah, I've seen reports from people like Ritter who say this could happen before the new year again. And but I 100% agree with your assessment. If they do it or not, I don't know. I mean, Israel, they tend to do what they like. But this is I think you're exactly right. This would be not. It would not be a cakewalk. It would be much worse than that. And then I want your final maybe thoughts as we begin to close here, Scott, on Donald Trump's handling of this whole situation, because, of course, genocide continues. The region itself is really, people are seeing this, and there are some people who thump their chests, especially on the pro-Israeli side. And they look how invincible we are. Look what we're doing in Syria. We're still, wanton murdering people in Lebanon, Gaza, of course, and then Iran. There's a cessation of hostilities there. So look, we're doing so well, but at the same time, Scott, there is the reality that at any point a civil war, the 2.0, it seems like, could ignite in Lebanon. Syria is far from stable. And of course, you have the unpredictability of Israeli leadership, as desperate as it is. And then you have Donald Trump's leaked plan to develop Gaza, which essentially calls for, I don't know if you saw this, Scott, it's called the Gaza Reconstruction Economic Acceleration and Transformation Plan, the Great Trust. What it essentially calls for is paying people in Gaza, Palestinians, to leave, which is almost like another right of return disaster, a Nakba type situation, but basically to pay them to leave, to go somewhere else, so then the U.S. Can develop it, the Kushners of the world, and then they'll be able to come back, maybe, perhaps. But what has been your take on how the Trump administration has handled this particular situation, as There's been a lot of, you say, blunders when it comes to the trade war, the Russia-Ukraine situation being what it is, not really for the U.S. to decide at this point. But here, the Trump administration has taken kind of almost a very definitive position. What's your assessment on how it's been doing?
Well, I mean, if you want to give Donald Trump a grade for following through with his campaign commitments, he gets an A, because he said he will support Israel. He's an Israeli supporter. He built a cabinet that, I think, in order to get through the door, you had to basically put Israel first. And so he's delivered. And if you have that cabinet, they will produce the policies that get us what we have today: blind support for Israel, regardless of the nefarious nature of what Israel is doing. And I want to remind people listening that every crime that you and I and others articulate regarding Israel and what they've done to Gaza, the United States is culpable in this crime. If we went to trial, we would be found guilty of murder along with the Israelis, because we facilitated this. This isn't just being the getaway driver in a bank robbery gone bad. This is us actually planning the bank robbery, providing the explosives, the guns, the bullets, ordering the Israeli bank robber to kill people. I mean, we're in many ways worse than the Israelis are when it comes to this, because we know that this wouldn't happen unless we facilitated it, and yet here we are facilitating it nonetheless. It's a dark day for America. It's for America and for the American people. It's a shame. The only good news is that even here inside America, the winds of change appear to start to blow here. Donald Trump himself had to confess that the Israeli lobby no longer has the iron grip support, the control over the U.S. Congress. Trump admitted Israel bought the Congress. I mean, this is sitting president of the United States saying, yeah, Israel bought and he's not doing anything about it because he's already sold his soul to that devil. But I think there's a growing recognition in the United States that continued support of Israel, blind support of Israel, is problematic. It goes against everything we stand for collectively as a people, and we, for the sake of humanity, has to be stopped. And I think that's the direction that we're heading. We're not going to get there overnight. It'll take time, but the Palestinian people have struggled for so long. When you look at the overall narrative of their struggle, we are close to the finish. It may still be some ways off, but when you look at the totality of their struggle, we're in the end game here, and I do think it's going to end poorly for Israel.
Yeah, Scott, when we think about ending poorly for Israel, the latest polls, there are polls all the time, and this was a big election issue, as you might remember. It's actually probably one of the biggest reasons why Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris was the fact that she was the face of genocide at that time. She was the face of what was going on in Gaza. The latest polls are showing, Scott, that only roughly 30% of people in the United States, and that's just 30% of people polled, support what's going on. And then you even have in Israel, you were 100% correct and are 100% correct. 80, 90 plus % of Israelis have no empathy for Palestinians. Worse than that, they're okay with their slaughter. But they also want to see this end because many see it as, one, there have been a lot of Israelis who have been sacrificed at the altar of this, none the least the prisoners of war called hostages, which were taken on October 7th, many of them killed during this time by Israel. So your reactions to this, like, why then does Israel continue? Like, is there a strategic value of Gaza beyond just displacing all the Palestinians? Trump, in his plan, appears to see it as almost a way to take or maintain maybe dominance in West Asia through economic development, American style.
The thing about Gaza is that Israel and the United States have already shown that they can take control of the Palestinian narrative. Mohammed Abbas is bought and paid for Abu Mazen. He's owned by the United States and Israel. Fatah has stopped being an effective resistance movement for many years. They're now just basically an extension of the Israeli security forces. The Palestinians in diaspora are a confused bunch of people who, cut their own throats by cheering the demise of Bashar al-Assad, cheering on Jolani, this al-Qaeda terrorist in Syria, not understanding that you're breaking the back of the axis of resistance that helped, facilitate, the ongoing resistance. The only resistance taking place is in Gaza. That's it. Hamas. And Israel wants Hamas gone. So does the United States. This is one of those existential issues, and Hamas isn't going anywhere. If any political party has emerged from this conflict, having demonstrated that it cares about, the creation of a Palestinian state, it's Hamas. And so the idea that it's going to be erased, that they're going to be evicted, is absurd in the extreme. The Israeli government of Benjamin Netanyahu, is a government that's fighting against, various tides of change. One of the big tides of change is linked to the corruption of Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife, Sarah. If this war ever ends, and his government will collapse because his government can't survive in peacetime, it's a wartime government, he will be taken to trial and found guilty of corruption. He will spend the rest of his life in jail where he belongs. But we're also seeing additional investigations into his conduct as prime minister, the mishandling of classified information, the deliberate lying and deception to the Israeli people about the hostage situation, ill preparedness on October 7th, on and on and on we go. This is a failed leader whose only ability to sustain himself in power is by continuing to hype up the threat of, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi, Iran, and that Israel needs me. You can't change horses mid-stride and things of that nature. So Israel will continue to go down this path because the politicians that are guiding Israel today need this conflict in order to survive. When this conflict is over, they're gone and they know it. So they're looking for sort of the equivalent of a perpetual war, which is what you get in Gaza if you talk about depopulation and all this stuff. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take forever, but it creates a perpetual concept of conflict that allows the legitimization of the Ben Gavirs and the Katzes and these other just instant. I forget, there's a Smernich or Smith, or I don't know what his name is, but he's a horrible individual who just promotes genocide. I think that's why this war can't end. That's why Israel won't allow this war to end, because if this war ends, then they're all gone. And Hamas will never surrender. I think that's the other reality that's emerging here is it doesn't matter what Donald Trump and Jared Kushner and Marco Rubio and anybody else says about Hamas. Hamas is there. And they've already dared you to come and dig them out, and nobody can. So God bless the Palestinian people. God bless the resistance. And God bless Hamas for putting up a hell of a fight against overwhelming odds and beating them. And people might get mad at me for saying this, but if you don't recognize that Israel is the evil party here, that Israel is the one that's doing, the devil's work, gosh, then there's not much I can do for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be, if these tens of thousands of reservists end up marching into Gaza, the scenes are about to get a lot more difficult to black out, as Israel often tries to do. Scott, one question from a super chat says, is it possible in exchange, quickly, as we're running out of time here, but is it possible in exchange for looking the other way, the U.S. requires Israel to get U.S. permission to launch their nuclear weapons?
Now, Israel has a long-standing agreement with the United States. It dates back to the Nixon administration about the protocol for using nuclear weapons. Israel isn't a law unto itself. There is an agreement that was reached that Israel is obliged to comply with, or else will find themselves on the wrong side of U.S. law and global nonproliferation policies. And so, and Israel has on occasion initiated the protocol that's linked to eventually declaring itself to be a nuclear power. But so there's no look the other way. There's no deal. The deal has already been made. The deal's there, and it has not been altered.
Well, everyone, it was a great show today. Be sure to hit the like button before you go. You can find all of our guests' information in the video description below. We have Scott's YouTube channel. He does rants very frequently, Ritter's rants, which are definitely worth watching. Whether you agree, disagree, it doesn't matter. They definitely hold a lot of value. You have Andre's YouTube channel, Garland's as well. Scott, anything else you'd like to plug before we head out of here?
Well, I'm just midway through this Project 38 thing we talked about earlier, the nuke stuff. The Russia trip was extraordinarily valuable in planting the seeds to bring about the potential of change. We're working on doing things. I don't know if people saw my Substack, scottritter.com, but we myself and a group of other Americans that we call ourselves the Poughkeepsie Peace Initiative, we wrote an open letter to Donald Trump, beginning what we hope is a process of coordination and consultation about the extension of the New START treaty. And we're moving forward. And I just want to thank everybody who has who's donated and supported in this. So far, it couldn't have happened without you. We still have a ways to go. So anybody else that wants to support, but thank you everybody who's stepped up to the plate. We wouldn't have gotten this far without you, and we're doing some pretty cool stuff.
That's awesome, Scott. Your Substack is now in the video description below. So as you are going to like the video so more people can see it, go to the video description. Make sure you check all of that out on Scott's Substack. Without further ado, everyone, I'll be back again soon this weekend. But until then, take care. See you later. 再见. That's Chinese. Goodbye. I will see you all again then. Bye-bye.